I think we're still largely thinking that companies generally play by the rules and companies are generally to be trusted. The driver in Silicon Valley is really very strongly like, how can I make more money? And unless there is actual consequences, the logic of these companies says, let's just do it anyway.
Privacy in Motion explores how your personal data fuels billion-dollar systems, while examining who controls the rules of digital privacy and what it truly means to own and protect your identity.
We're here, there's a sign literally telling us we're being recorded on CCTV. You know, London is the third largest city for surveillance, right? 670 cameras per 10,000 people. Do you think it's just a contract with the world that the minute you leave your house, you're going to be recorded and just tries to keep you doing the right thing?
I guess so.
It is scary because these are like powerful big businesses or the government, like that's a powerful organization and I'm just a girl, do you know what I mean?
I would trust that like people in power who have that like crazy amount of power to view the surveillance around the city are the right ones in power.
You're a lawyer, you fight for data rights. You really took on Facebook, which most people don't do, and when you actually won twice. Give us the kind of origin story of how that came about.
I studied for half a year in Silicon Valley, basically at a university, and there were a couple of guys from like the big tech companies. One of them was from Meta, and they were quite frank to say, you know, the Europeans are kind of cute with all their privacy stuff, but if you just ignore it, nothing actually happens anyways. Basically, it's a business calculation, not law, as I was taught law should be. I think that is something that in Europe isn't understood yet.
The regulators feel to me to be protecting the companies much more than they are the individuals, which is really not in their original remit. It was.
Yeah, it's a very political problem. So in many countries, especially privacy regulators are by law independent, and that sounds great. So independent regulator, but all politically appointed. So basically you put someone there that independently does nothing. Prime example is usually Ireland and Luxembourg because that's where all the big tech companies are. And then you have a person that for 8 years independently does zero. And that is a very shameless game we're playing here.
And I'm quite uninformed, so it's like I don't know the ins and outs of these things, but I think when it's a company of that scale, it's like I feel like I trust the government more. I guess at the moment, you know, I mean, I guess if things change, you know, with like election, you know, and stuff, you know, it's like it might depend, like, you know, it might change, especially, you know, as someone who's in white, it's like, you know, like politics is kind of mad at the moment, you know, it's like, you know, so it would change how I feel about the government owning my data, I think.
In a democratic system, I mean, I now tell lawyers more and more, what is your function in society? And it's interesting because at legal conventions, people look at you as like, my function in society, driving a Porsche, I don't know. And so I usually tell them, you know, there is that function that lawyers should have in a system. However, they oftentimes more see their role in how to bypass the law and not to actually comply with it.
You have this, what you think is a right to your data, but the fact is most GDPR cases go absolutely nowhere, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, to talk, for example, about the Schrems 2 litigation, which you mentioned before, the one where we won at the Court of Justice. The litigation, I was a defendant. I was actually sued by the Irish regulator as a defendant, which is like fucking crazy. It couldn't happen usually in Europe. The overall legal bill was probably around 10 million euros. And I was personally liable for that as a student. So I was like, first call was like to our foreign minister, is like, do we have enforcement agreements with Ireland? No, we don't, cool, because I'm not gonna lose everything I have.
That's right.
But that is a lot of stuff where like the average person will never put itself into these positions. On the other hand, as a big company, you're just gonna invest $100,000 to just make it go away or delay it.
Right.
To give another example, in Ireland, only 0.6% or something like that of the fines were ever paid. So they're all pending in court forever.
And if you have a big enough legal bench, you can...
Exactly, you just wait and wait, and you just delay. And that works really well in the environment we have.
It sounds really like pessimistic, but like end of the day is like it's gonna somehow end up in someone's hands. A lot of these like apps have like a legacy and like have something that precedes them. How do we move forward without, you know, acknowledging what's happened before?
In the case that you brought in Vienna, I think you had 25,000 people sign up with you to be co-defendants, and you had to cut it off because you had too many. So in that action, what's the real thing that you as a political activist and a lawyer were looking for? What did you want these companies to acknowledge?
So I think to a large extent, collective redress, which is these cases, could exactly overcome the problem that we have. Like basically your damage is $500 or whatever, but your litigation cost is $1 million, so no one in the world's gonna do that. And collective redress in many areas can actually overcome that. If you group 1 million people together, then suddenly the numbers are exactly opposite. It costs €1 per person to enforce, and that is exactly what we tried to do. Now, the Austrian version way back when was still without a European framework, so it failed on that. But we now do have that since last year. And I think it's very underreported that exists because in any digital topic, you usually have millions of affected people, be it privacy or be it something else. And once you can group them together, they actually have that power to enforce in reality. It's a total numbers game. You basically just have to get enough people together. And that was interesting when we did this first case in Austria, because I mean, we said we're gonna probably get $500 if it works per person or something in that ballpark. And a lot of people emailed us saying, I actually don't want the money. I just want you to kind of go after these fuckers and stop this shit.
Right.
And that was quite interesting because a lot of them were like, donate it for a good cause. I don't care. And it was quite interesting to see that there is actually really this feeling of people of how can we get together and stop this?
Laws can change the rules, but they can't change the habit of giving ourselves away. If surveillance is the default setting of the modern web, then reclaiming privacy isn't a legal battle, it's a cultural reset. And that reset starts the moment we decide our data isn't disposable.